Hey, what's up, guys? I thought it'd be something cool here. What is this? This is an illustration for the London News, 25th January 1913. We have H.G. Wells playing Little Wars. What is this? Well, apparently H.G. Wells was one of the first guys to actually publish a set of rules for war games, right? Civilian war games, obviously, the Kriegspiel, the famous Kriegspiel, is the Prussian version of war games, which is primarily to train their officers. There were many people that had made little war games using little toy soldiers in particular, but he was the one that actually wrote a book of it, and lo and behold, I got this a couple of years ago. Interesting. It's two books actually. The first one is sort of like imaginary, kind of like Sim City for his sons, right? Playing with toys, making their own little worlds of imagination. Right? But the Little Wars, of course, is the famous one. Very influential. A bit of a cul-de-sac, as they say, though. And I'll just go over here. You have this little intro. Gary Gygax, right, co-founder of TSR, right, Dungeons and Dragons, stated in the introduction, right, the Little Wars directly inspired him and his friends to incorporate some of his features into the games, right. Now we go into the Little Wars. Here, of course, we have to have notes on the texts, the vocabulary and social views prevalent in England and amongst Wells' social circle. I'm not, yeah, kind of funny, yeah, but. Let's get to the Little Wars here. I assume it's a little book. I don't know what the original was. A little hardcover, but I like how it starts out. Little Wars is the game of kings, right? War is the game of kings is an old term. Right? But essentially, shows how the game developed, which is as fascinating as the whole thing here. Okay, making blocks, like making all these. I don't know how they made the trees. I'm sure they probably used cuttings, right? But the photography in this is as fascinating as everything else. I tell you, I like miniatures, right? Obviously, for FX stuff, but for wargaming, it'd be kind of fun. You got actually have him here, right? Playing the outside. I mean, it was to be they played it inside, but it was also meant to be played outside. And the book shows how they developed the rules. Right? Now, of course, one of the interesting things. There's two interesting facets of the war game. Okay. There was no dice, right? There wasn't a rolling of the dice. There actually was a small toy cannon that was fairly accurate that could shoot like wooden plugs or whatever. You shot at the soldiers, right? You tried to kill them with this cannon. Instead of rolling dice or whatever. And what's fascinating is, of course, that no one really does that. Although there are people that play this under these rules. Right? Also, what's interesting is the opposite here, right? When they were doing like the hand to hand, the melee combat as they call it, right? The hand to hand fighting, the close in fighting. They would flip a coin, right, to see which of the two which of the two soldiers which one would kill the other, right? And eventually he was big on getting rid of chance, right? The strategy towards predominance over chance, right? I think he says something here about it's a fool yeah, the idea right here of the coin, the spin of the coin. Rash is the man who trusts his life to a spin of the coin. So this is sort of almost like throwing dice. He wanted to eliminate all of the uncertainties in chance that you have. Well, we all know that in actual combat, the fog of war, the warfare, that there's all these factors that you don't know about. There's so much chance. Okay, that's why they have in the modern war games. You have the dice, right? You have the cards that come in when you pick a card, and it totally changes everything. And kind of an algorithm. So that was those are the two things about it that really kind of differentiate it from. And I look at these old photos. It's got the boating hat, right? Really cool. And the rules here. How you move the people. I would have kept the coin rules. If I played this game, I would do the coin, right, for the hand-to-hand fighting. On 364 days, a guy that could kill another guy in a fight. On that 365th day, it could go the other way. It's just the nature of reality. And I actually like here how he goes. His wife at the time, although he was a philanderer, right? the Woven War correspondent, obviously his wife, right? A daring ornament of her sex. I like that term. I like that. So, of course, um, the irony is, of course, in the beginning. Well, anyway, I'll do that in another vid. I don't want to make these super long. So he actually gives an example through photos, right, photography, of the battles and how they went with a lot of humorous little anecdotes in terms of it. Like, remember, Wells is a pacifist, okay, but he's not. He understands. He even says in there that he has an example of just because you deplore something doesn't mean that you don't train for it. Right? He has little things to add to it. He also talked to military men, about making it kind of like a Kriegsspiel, and one of the big facets of making this more of a Kriegsspiel, right, is the idea of logistics and supply is a huge part of it, right, which is to be shown in the 20th century. Now, of course, the sentimental part of it, the ironic part of it, is his thing here, ending with a sort of challenge, right, and he explains his game, right? And if I might for a moment trumpet, right, how much better would playing at this little war, right, would be so much a better thing to do than big war or great war, right? Great War, okay? This book came out in 1913, right? So the Guns of August are merely a year away, and it's going to be, it is kind of one of the ironic things when you read this book, okay? Very clever. H.G.Wells is a great writer, okay? Utopian, Fabian, socialist. But if you read his science fiction work, there's always a dark and cynical sort of thing, edge to them, okay? Just like Jack London's stories. Fascinating man. But anyway, right? My game is just as good as their game, Great War, and saner by reason of its size. Here is war, down to the rational proportions, yet out of the way of mankind, even as our fathers turned human sacrifices into the eating of little images and symbolic mouthfuls, right? For my own part, I am prepared. I have nearly 500 men, more than a score of guns, and I twirl my mustache and hurl defiance eastward for my home in Essex across the narrow seas. And then I like how he goes here, I have never yet met in little battle any military gentleman, captain, major, colonel, general, or eminent commander who did not presently get into difficulties and confusions among even the elementary rules of the battle. You have only to play at little wars 3 or 4 times to realize just what a blundering thing Great War must be. Great War is at present, I am convinced, not the only most expensive game in the universe, but it is a game out of all proportion. Not only are the masses of men and material and suffering and inconvenience too monstrously big for reason, but the available heads we have for it are too small. That, I think, is the most pacific realization conceivable in Little Wars. Brings you to it as nothing else but Great War can do. The cost, right? Anyway, I'm going to cover another version of Little Wars that kind of brings the game to you where you could do it, and I'll put some links to other things in that video.